Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Pastor Lionel Bailey from Christ Church Assembly of God in Fort Worth. Pastor, thank you for coming out today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Shall we pray? When the righteous thrive, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan. God of all wisdom, God of all power, we bring energy, faith, and devotion to this endeavor in light of our city, all who serve it, and those we are called to serve. We recognize the gravity of the task before us. We understand the consequences for ourselves and those who will feel the wind of our decisions. So allow us to do to others as we desire to be treated. Give us courage to make decisions that are not only in the best interests of the present, but also for our future. Impress upon us the compassion to understand that we are commissioned to do what must be done in light of your wisdom for the good of others, not ourselves. So that our children will rejoice in days to come. Our city may become a neighborhood, and our lovely poor may sing words of hope. Now to you, you see our actions, and you know our hearts. To you, wonderful Counselor, mighty God, the everlasting one, to whom earth and heaven will bow. We commit this place to your service and to the service of your people. We welcome your guidance in this place. Please bring with you truth, faith, fairness, and righteousness, that wickedness may flee from the city, and all your children may rejoice. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Pastor, for coming out today. Appreciate it. Thank you.
That was a meaningful prayer.
Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have several announcements today. One that deals directly with our agenda is on purchasing. It'll be item 8H1. This is the sale of recycled paper. You have a revised court communication in your red folders this morning as it relates to that particular item. Also, members of court, we have an item that's listed twice on the agenda, one as an action item and also one the same as a briefing item. That's under facilities, 8E1. This concerns the real estate sale. What I would suggest is that we take this as the first priority under the briefing, and then if the court wants to take action on it, we'll take action at that time.
I'm going to ask that we suspend the agenda and take that briefing item first, so that the superintendent can go back to work.
I think that'd be great.
And then we'll get on with the rest of the agenda.
I have a few other announcements. First of all, we are not having Commissioners Court next Tuesday, March 5th. So our next court will be March 12th. Also, members of court, as we go into the months of March and April, we're going to be bringing several items to you that are going to require workshop sessions to deal with. And two of those that we're going to be talking with you about deal with health insurance for our employees and also our retirees. There is significant changes that will be occurring in the future and in the near future, and it's going to impact all of our current employees, and it'll impact this county as far as the cost of medical insurance. It's going to be very, very important, gentlemen, that you all take the time to fully understand these issues, because as we roll them out to our employees, you will probably be getting some calls, and we want to make sure that you're very familiar with these various issues and why we are recommending that. The other one, the other piece of the health insurance is one that deals with retirees. We promised you that we were going to bring that to you by the end of April. We intend to probably bring that to you at the end of March, maybe the first part of April, so that we can discuss that. As you might remember, as we went through the budget process last year, we talked about getting that piece of the discussion finalized before we got to the last days of the budget. And then finally, I spoke with Commissioner Brooks this morning, and staff's in agreement that there's a need to have a fairly extensive workshop with the court as it relates to IT. Things are changing in IT. You're going to see a total, or not a totally new direction, but a new emphasis placed on various issues in IT. And since we are now opening the budget portal, I guess that'll be Friday, and it'll close at end of April 30th. We want to bring you a work session probably I would venture to say probably the end of March. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because we're looking at 3 work sessions for the court, maybe more, and I would think those work sessions will take a couple hours apiece. And so we can either try to fit them in a court meeting, or we could come back on a separate day, because we all need to focus on those particular issues.
Would your pleasure be to try to do that in the afternoons on a Tuesday, or to come back on a separate day?
Yes.
Yes, Tuesday.
Okay.
So we're not meeting next week, so that's going to leave us with only probably 3 Tuesdays in March. And then and we have said that we were going to try to have the benefits part of this done by April, or by the end of April. So
We intend to do that. We're going to meet that schedule.
we probably
IT session can go last, and it can bleed over into April.
Okay, so what we may want to do is plan on work sessions beginning with that second Tuesday in March.
Let me suggest that you all just simply free your Tuesday afternoons up, so that, and let us, whenever we're prepared to bring that to you, that you will be available to do that. Your Honor, does that sound okay?
We'll try.
Yeah.
I will report to your office every Tuesday morning.
Great idea, GK. Great idea. And just to kind
After
of
25 years, you still don't get any respect around me.
and just to kind of emphasize what GK is saying, at the same time that they were discussing this at PBC, we were also hearing about it from the accounting standards that have a great deal of influence over our financial statements. One of the things which is going to impact our unfunded liabilities as well as our actual checkbook is the excise tax that is proposed under the beginning in 2018, depending upon the size or the value of our plan. I believe PEBC's estimate was that could require us, under the current status that we're in right now, to write a check for somewhere between $2 and $3 million a year to the federal government for what is considered to be an excise tax on our Cadillac plan.
Too good of a.
And that's not, I mean, that's just an actual check that we will write if we don't make some changes or go some other way.
Okay.
So that's what we plan to do through March and April. Your Honor, we want to move now to the issue dealing with the contract sale. I'm going to ask Mr. Phillips to move forward initially, and we'll move to his agenda item under facilities and begin that discussion.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Last August, the Commissioners Court approved a real estate brokerage listing agreement with Jones Lang LaSalle to market and sell the Education Center at 401 East 8th Street, Fort Worth. They went through the process. They listed it with CoStar and LoopNet, advertised it in various different markets. Jones Lang LaSalle received some interest from various developers and owners. They walked through the property and did some due diligence. During that process, we received the Fort Worth Independent School District reached out directly to the county with an interest for the property. And I discussed the property with the Fort Worth ISD staff, their engineers and architects at length. They took tours of the building, did inspections, and some due diligence on the surveys and the air conditioning and the layouts and so on and so forth. They asked for AutoCAD drawings, and they spent a lot of time on this building. And I believe the outcome is that this building would work well for them for a school. Now, we did receive an offer from a private developer, Panther Real Estate Solutions, for $4,450,000. We also received the same amount, an offer from the Fort Worth Independent School District of $4,450,000. And I'm here requesting court approval to move forward with the sale of the Education Center to the Fort Worth ISD.
I think that there were some questions that we had posed, or at least that I had posed to GK, and I know that he has conveyed those. GK, would you like to discuss those at this point, or at least?
Members of the court, we sent each of you some information yesterday as it dealt with that, and I do have extra copies if you need those. Of course, let me go through a couple of these. First of all, the location is 401 East 8th Street, which is the block immediately north of the Intermodal Center. The building itself is approximately 80,000 square feet. It's a 4-story building. It sits on a half of a block. The other half of the block is also part of the property, and there are parking spaces on the vacant area. We had the property appraised when we began to think about selling the property in October of 2011, and the appraised value was $3.9 million. As Mr. Phillips said, we have 2 potential buyers at this time, the Fort Worth ISD and also Panther Real Estate Solutions, and both have offered $4.45 million. We gave you some information also, and it's currently off the tax rolls. Tarrant County took when we acquired the property, we took it off the tax rolls, and we gave you some information. Commissioner Fickus had asked that we provide information as it relates to if it was put back on the tax roll in a non-tax exempt status, what the revenues would be for each of the taxing entities. There was an issue that was raised as far as what type of impact that this might have on economic development down in that area, especially the sale of alcohol. I contacted the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, talked to their licensing division, and asked if there is a prohibition on locating a liquor permit or a beer permit at a particular distance from the school. They advised me that there is a general question that they ask on their application, that if it's within 1,000 feet. And I said, and I asked, they did tell me though that was not a disqualifier. It was simply to gain information as they went through the licensing process. I spoke with the city of Fort Worth because of the distance on the zoning requirements. That distance is 300 feet, and that zoning can be waived, but it would be waived on a case-by-case basis. It's not a general waiver that the city could do, but they would consider a potential waiver but it was on a case-by-case basis versus a general waiver. There was also some information that was requested as it relates to the ridership at the Intermodal Center, and I believe that we provided you all with an information sheet. Judge Woodley provided that to us, and we provided that to you. Also, there was a email that Andy Taff, who is the president of the downtown Fort Worth, sent to the judge. I guess it was yesterday, and Judge Woodley also asked that we make that memo available to, or that email available to you, which you should have a copy of. Finally, as it relates to the intermodal, a question was asked as far as individuals who by court orders or conditions or probation or parole that should not be a certain distance from schools, and working with the district attorney's office, and I have asked them to research that basically if an individual is on probation for a particular offense that requires that they not get close to a school, that distance is 1,000 feet. And interestingly, if the person is on parole for a conviction dealing with where they're not supposed to be closer or close to a school, that distance is 500 feet. It's my understanding that whenever these type of sentences are handed out or people are released, that either the court itself or the prison system advises those individuals about the distance requirements and basically tells them that they need to basically stay away from that distance from the school. I also talked a little bit with Mr. Dansby about the traffic flow in downtown.
About what?
Traffic flow. And Mr. Dansby, I believe I have this correct. I know that you'll probably address this also. Mr. Dansby advised that the ISD has been working with the city of Fort Worth and that an acceptable traffic plan has been developed. And there may even be a situation where the buses are not actually drawn into the downtown area, but more on the fringe of downtown. And of course, Mr. Dansby is here, and he can address that more thoroughly than I can. I believe that that's all the information that we have. I'll be more than happy to try to answer any questions on that information if you have any questions. Of course, if you have issues that relate to the traffic plan, I know that Mr. Dansby is here to answer any of those questions.
You want to reference Mr. Taft's letter and tell us what he said about it?
Yes. This was an email. Judge, may I read this?
Sure. I mean, okay. I had talked with Andy had sent me some information. I had talked with him a little bit about that, and so I wanted to go ahead and make sure that the court had that information also.
Sure. And this email was sent yesterday afternoon, and it basically is thoughts to consider. Number one, we want primary schools in downtown because we're hearing from residents that they are moving out because of school options. Number two, we would like to see land use distance restrictions around schools waived in H zoning. Number three, given the unique proximity to the ITC Central Transfer Station, if this is an issue, the ISD should confer with the courts to here resolve the issues as part of their due diligence process. And four, the subject property sits in the Commerce-Jones corridor, a stretch of downtown with a lot of vacant land that could be returned to the tax rolls. The school activity may add more interest in that area, leading to development. The school may be another unique amenity that will lead to development, especially residential in that area. An office building won't play that catalytic role. And it's signed by Mr. Taft.
Thank you.
Judge, may I?
Sure.
It's no secret to any member of this court that I have been the major proponent of locating this school at this particular site. The Young Women's Leadership Academy is an award-winning program that is a star in the crown of the Fort Worth Independent School District. It provides unique opportunities for young women to study in a single-sex environment, to develop not only their academic skills, but their leadership skills as well. I am the one to whom, well, actually, I reached out to the Fort Worth ISD about this particular building because they had a plan to locate. They've outgrown the facility that they're currently in, which is in the medical district. And they plan to relocate the school in one of the suburban communities that does not have bus transportation available to it, thereby limiting the ability of persons who depend on public transportation to participate in the education of their children. It just made sense to locate this facility, which draws young women from all over the city of Fort Worth into the central business district, especially in light of the fact that we are developing in the central business district a strong educational focus. What with the Texas Wesleyan, soon to be Texas A&M Law School at Texas Wesleyan being located downtown, with the University of Texas at Arlington downtown campus being located a block or so away from the law school, and with the Trinity River East and West campuses of Tarrant County College located in the downtown area. It made sense from a synergistic standpoint to put this facility downtown. It made sense in terms of exposing these young women to higher educational opportunities to locate this facility downtown. There are a lot of reasons to do this, in my opinion. The downtown business community does not seem to oppose this choice, as witnessed by the memo from Mr. Taft, and from conversations I've had with business people, including Mr. Ed Bass, who says he sees no reason to oppose this choice. All in all, I think it's the right thing to do. I have been approached by members of this court asking that we delay voting on this issue for 2 weeks. I have reluctantly agreed not to press for a vote today, but to delay it for 2 weeks. But I want Mr. Dansby and those who he has brought with him to be able to stand before this court and answer any and all questions that we might have, so that in 2 weeks we can be fully prepared to consider this item and take a vote. Now, not only is Mr. Dansby here, but also the principal of the Young Women's Leadership Academy is here. The chair of the advisory committee, Ms. Deborah Ferguson, is here. And they're ready to talk with us.
Mr. Dansby.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to come before you today. And
Good morning.
Mr. Brooks has really basically covered everything and the reasons why we need to have this building downtown. But I do want to cover just a few things. It's very important that we do provide a good opportunity for these kids, but also a central location where it's amenable for all our kids to have an opportunity to go to the school. One of the things that was brought up about downtown Fort Worth, Inc., is that we opened up Nash not too long ago so that residents downtown, but also those who came to work downtown from other areas of this county, were allowed to place their kids at the elementary school so they could actually be there and close to their kids and close to activities. Well, this is another caveat there that goes forward that would add to that, starting with 6th grade. The other thing is, like Mr. Brooks said, is the availability of University of Texas at Arlington, the law school, the Tarrant County College, but also our partnership in the arts with Bass Hall. There are some concerns and questions about traffic, and I want to say that one of the things we're doing right now, we are working with the city of Fort Worth on a traffic plan, but also we've done this enough to know in and out of our schools, every time we have a new school, the city of Fort Worth does come out and lay out a plan for us. But we also have looked at it ourselves, and we've also ran bus routes ourselves, whether you know it or not, in this area. We only need 4 buses right now. At most, we'll need 6 buses in the area. We do have a route in and a route out that does not interfere with traffic in the city of Fort Worth, right here in the main part of town. The other part of it is that what we have is there's other concern about safety. 501 Jones is a hub for Fort Worth PD. I just happened to stop by there one time and stopped in the parking lot and just asked the guy, you know, what was going on here and what was here, because I really didn't realize it was there myself, but I saw all the cruisers there all the time. And his statement was, he kind of laughed at me about safety. He said, this is the safest spot in the city of Fort Worth. We actually have, not only do we have our bicycle patrol here, but Bass Patrol as well. But also, so you'll know, if we acquire this building, we will have safety procedures built within this building, in the design of this building, to protect our kids. So we understand safety, and so that'll be taken care of. The other thing is, it came up about sex offenders, and I think Mr. Mingus did a good job of covering that. But the fact is that is called on by the court, and the judge makes that decision as what those restrictions are. Those restrictions are different from with any type of case, and so you never know what that is. But my question would be is, does the city transportation department, do they have restrictions on riders of the bus? Because they stop and they're in and out on bus stops close to our schools all the time. And so that's one of the things that we'd have to take care of, and we take care of, and we do take care of it, take that seriously with our schools. And so those things will be taken care of. And so I don't see that as being a problem. The other thing about alcohol and what would happen downtown Fort Worth, we would work with the city of Fort Worth to make sure that we didn't interfere with any economic development in the city of Fort Worth, as long as we're abiding by the city ordinances that they have in place. That is our plan. We want to grow. We want to be in the city of Fort Worth. We want to be downtown. We want to get those kids that are coming from the apartments and those duplexes and things that are built downtown, the condominiums. We want that. And so it's a good opportunity for all of us to enjoy and the education that a kid can get from that particular school. One of the things that Mr. Brooks brought up, this school scores higher than any schools, and the average is higher than, at all points are higher than the state average. They score higher than the state average on all exams. So that tells a little bit about the school. Parking spaces, that was brought up. There are 39 parking spaces. We don't have enough parking where we are. And so we've outgrown that facility, but at the same time, we can place restrictions on our kids as we do in other places. We put restrictions on kids whether they drive or not. That is our decision. So we can handle that ourselves. And those kids and parents that want their kids there would have to abide by that. But also there are other opportunities we've looked at throughout the area where we could lease parking if need be. However, we wouldn't need anything for another 2 years because our kids, most of our kids right now, our top grade is ninth grade. We'll have sophomores next year. But I don't anticipate, and the principal doesn't anticipate us having a lot of kids wanting to drive. The other thing is a great opportunity for us because we want to offer these girls, and because of where we are, and because of Fort Worth, we're landlocked in a lot of cases, opportunities for these girls to participate in sports. Well, we have an underutilized facility right now at Tarrant. It's capacity. It's the elementary school there, and we also have a technology division there, but also there are fields and tracks there that are unused. But also, for these kids, I do know in the building, we're not going to have a big auditorium for these kids there, but we do have a beautiful auditorium at Tarrant, and it's about 3 minutes away. The other thing is that I guess in closing, and I'll answer any questions y'all have, is that we've answered the question about our security. We are looking at measures to be taken in the renovation of the building for security. So I'm just at your liberty of any question you might have to ask me right now.
Mr. Dansby, would you describe the activity that you have undergone since you first discovered this building and since we started negotiating a contract with you?
One of the things that we've looked at and we've started work on is that time is of the essence for us because we want to make sure that we get this building or get a place ready for a time for school to start next year.
Which is August.
Which is August, yeah. And what I've already done is we do have plans in the makings. We have architects that are already working on plans and layouts. Again, like I said, we're working with the City of Fort Worth on the traffic plan. All of those measures are being taken right now, and so I could show you guys that if you'd like it.
Can you talk a little bit? I don't know a whole lot about this Leadership Academy, Mr. Dansby. Can you share with me about the school, the academy, when it was formed and how important it is to the school district and to all children in Fort Worth?
Yes, sir. If you'll allow me, I'm going to allow the principal to tell you about that.
That would be good.
She doesn't need any notes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
The school began in August of 2010. We began with 150 students, 6th and 7th graders. The school was open in a partnership with Fort Worth ISD and the Foundation for the Education of Young Women. There was another question.
You received a grant from that foundation?
Yes, sir. We received a grant of $1 million from that foundation to provide enrichment and enhancement opportunities for our students.
Is this available to all children?
Yes, this school is open to all young ladies currently residing in the Fort Worth Independent School District in grade levels 6 through 9, and we add a grade level each year with our first graduating class in 2016.
And what makes this academy unique comparing to other schools?
What makes the academy unique is our whole girl approach, in that we try to not only educate our students but attune to their social needs as well. Also, we offer smaller class sizes. We also offer an emphasis on STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, which are areas where women are typically underrepresented. So we also have an emphasis on community service, responsible leadership, and health and wellness.
And what has the success rate been in terms of graduation and going on to college? And
Well, we are not at our graduation rate yet, but we are an exemplary campus. We are the only exemplary secondary school in the Fort Worth Independent School District based on our 2011 tax scores. Our reading scores were at 99% passing, math at 95%, and writing at 100%. Even with, and the state average was 86% in reading, 84% in math, and 94% in writing. With the introduction of the STAR exam, which is the new exam in the state of Texas, which is very difficult and challenging, we are proud to report that our reading passing rate was 96%, math was 96%, Writing was 100%, science was 86%, and social studies was 90%. In comparison to the state average of 77% in reading, 75% in math, 71% in writing, 70% in science, and 59% in social studies. So we are very proud to say that we're doing very well in educating our students.
Thank you.
I'm proud to agree with you.
How many young ladies apply for this school on an annual basis?
On an annual basis, our total...
So it would just be, they'd be coming into sixth grade, because I'm assuming once they get in,
Yes, sir.
then they would go all the way through.
We accept 75 students into our incoming sixth grade class, and as you said, these other students just continue to matriculate into the grade levels above. We have approximately 300 applications for those 75 spaces in sixth grade.
And what kind of criteria do you use to kind of determine ultimately which 75 will be selected?
There are a lot of different facets. One would be an essay. We look at the students' grades, attendance, teacher recommendation. We conduct an interview of all of the applicants. And then there is a lottery that ultimately determines. We also do have a preference for economically disadvantaged students, and that we accept 70% of that population overall for our school. Yes, sir. So currently our school economically disadvantaged population is 74%, and we are proud to say that we are providing services for the students in our community who need it most.
Would it be
Do you have statistics on ethnicity?
Yes, sir, I do. We are 44% African American, 34% Hispanic, 19% Caucasian, 3% Asian and American Indian, and again, 74% economically disadvantaged.
Is it safe for me to assume that most of these kids rely on public transportation to get to the school?
No. Currently, our district does provide transportation for any students that live within our attendance zones that live more than 2 miles from the school.
Okay.
So currently then, just looking at the size, so we're looking at 4 buses, then they go and collect.
Yes, sir.
So it's the four buses that basically distribute the folks at this point.
Okay.
Correct.
And that's because you're through what right now, 10th grade?
We're through 9th grade, 6 through 9.
9th grade, okay.
Yes, sir.
And as principal, do you have any concern at all regarding relocating the school to this location in terms of safety, in terms of traveling time, in terms of traffic?
No, sir. In fact, I'm very excited about the possibility of relocating to this location. It's centrally located. There are numerous partnership opportunities with the higher ed located there. As far as safety, I'm very confident in working with my district that we will have a safety plan that is best for our students. But no, ultimately, we are very excited of the central location and the accessibility for our families who have invested in the education of our children with our school.
Mr. Dansby, you have 100% support from your school board, I assume?
I have support from the school board. Well, you never know, but I know that we have the votes. Matter of fact, so you'll know, the board has voted to purchase the property, and the board also has voted to put money up for the renovation of the property already. So,
I see.
And everything is left up to this court now. I have been given the go-ahead as superintendent to move on it and begin work on this building once it is approved. So to answer your question, I do have support of the board.
And they're ready to go.
How long is this renovation going to take?
When we finish the design of it, probably about 4 to 5 months or less. Now, we can also, based on the time that we get it, we do know that we can go to the first, second, and third floors and maybe finish out the 4th floor later. But our plan is to complete the whole thing this summer.
I have a couple of questions. You mentioned earlier you would comply with all Fort Worth City ordinances. That alcohol ordinance, I believe, is 300 feet. If somebody comes across the street, which in all likelihood would be less than 300 feet, will you waive the right? If it's, let's say, the right kind of establishment,
I would
I'm speaking more in terms of a restaurant that serves alcohol, but may have, may stay open until 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I would work with our board to make sure that we would waiver those things. Also, to make you familiar with it, we have those situations throughout the Fort Worth Independent School District.
Couple other questions. Your build out student-wise, when you get 7 years in there, 7 grades, 6 through 12.
Yes.
Is that the ultimate?
Yes.
How many, is it 75 students per class?
We'll max out at about 525 students.
525 you think is your max? Okay. What are your hours, and will there be evening, like any school, I'm guessing there will be some kind of evening event?
There may be some evening events, but I think they would probably be limited. But also, I mentioned something to you. We have a beautiful setting at I Am Turtle for those types of events that would have plenty of parking and would not interfere with anything that may be going on downtown. That would just be a part of the principal and her advisory committee on their scheduling.
As a graduate of I Am Terrell, I can attest to the beauty of the facilities.
And approximately how much do you think you'll spend on renovations?
We have set up about right at $4.5 million.
For renovations?
Yes.
So you're going to have $9 million in this?
Yes, sir. Invested in this property. Yes, sir.
One of the things that I would say, obviously I have asked several of the questions on this deal, and let me begin by saying I fully support, and I think this is one of the greatest schools that we could ever hope for, and it's having fantastic results. There's no doubt about that. Part of my concerns with regards to this particular location, and it sounds like at one point in time you were looking at different locations. Where had you been looking to move this to prior to the time that you decided on this downtown location?
Well, Judge, the only thing that we had available to us was a school on 377, which is not practical. It wouldn't serve us at all, but it was the only thing we'd have, and we'd hope that the program would survive. It can't survive there. It will survive and thrive in downtown Fort Worth, and it's okay where it is, but we've outgrown the facility. But also, like we've tried to do throughout this city, is to be a good neighbor, is that it looks awfully bad for us to put portable buildings in that area of town, especially when they're trying to build up the area around Magnolia out there. And so that was just something that for us was just out of the question to do.
Well, and again, in looking at Andy's letter, Andy talks for the need of primary schools. As you indicated, Nash is a great elementary school. Any indications that I got from conversations with him is that the problem is once they get through with Nash, there's not a school that their kids are committed to downtown. And so his hope would be that we would have a secondary school in the downtown area. And again, while this is a great school, this doesn't really offer itself, it's not drawing from the downtown area.
Well, Judge, we're not limiting ourselves to this one school downtown. So you may hear from us again. We're looking at a STEM program that we could place downtown too that would also attract some of the other students and parents that may be downtown.
Did you look at
I am working with Andy on that.
Did you look at other properties and, some suggestions that have at least been mentioned to me from a standpoint where the library, which is already a piece of property that's off the tax rolls?
Yes, sir. That was
PCC as a possibility, either their old administrative offices or the new campus there. I know that Radio Shack has got a big part of that right now, but, at least that was another alternative from that perspective.
We're in the first 2 years or 3 years now biomedical sciences campus. Those students will be coming downtown their junior and senior year, so that space is not going to be available. When you talk about the library, some of the concerns that were raised was safety, traffic. You think about where the library is and buses going in and out of that area, that's one thing. But then when you talk about safety, we're right across the street from the county jail. And so I just didn't think that would be a proper place to have a school there, especially if we're going in and out all the time. So I did talk to Andy about those situations, but there's still possibilities of other opportunities downtown that we'll be looking at, especially for a STEM high school.
Now, the library, isn't that at 3rd Street? Isn't that the one that's at 3rd Street? Or are we talking about a different?
I'm thinking about the library that's right downtown, right beyond where the old Tandy Center used to be.
Okay. And maybe I was thinking of the old library or the new library right there at 3rd Street that faces 3rd. But, I mean, again, so you have not looked at that as an alternative at this point?
No,
Okay.
not that building.
And again, from a security standpoint, I understand that you certainly can provide the security. One of the issues, though, is that we're developing the Intermodal Center there is kind of the central location for all of our mass transit, for all of our buses, for all of our trains to come to. And the issue is, basically what GK found out in talking with the DA's office and with the parole is, if, what they're told is, if your route takes you within this distance of a school, then basically you're going to have to change your route. Now, I was a little surprised, and I certainly feel like that might be something that we could address and see if our judges would be willing to make some alterations. I'm not sure that from a parole board standpoint that we would have the discussion or the influence with those folks, but certainly within our judges we could talk with them about it. But again, the response that we got from the district attorney's office was they're not told, well, get off and then get out of the area as quickly as possible. They're said, make a new plan, don't get off, don't go to the Intermodal Center. And that's just, it seems to be that is a place where we have, as a downtown area, have chosen to put the majority of our infrastructure in to accept the buses, to accept the trains. Greyhound comes in there, Amtrak, everybody comes into that Intermodal Center at this point in time.
And I think you make a good point, but my point is the same, too, with everybody that rides, say, the transit in Fort Worth. The same conditions exist, and the same type of warnings may exist that could that you could place on any of those people that may be deemed by the court unfit to be around children. So,
but this is just a major hub as opposed to being a stop near a school. It's much more difficult, it will be much more difficult to make alternative plans when the city and the region has kind of designated that as the place that all of this is going to hub to.
I would far prefer to plan for the future of our children than to plan for how sex offenders get around town.
Don't disagree with that at all, except for the fact that the plan has already been set in place for the Intermodal Center, and I think there are other alternatives that potentially could be looked at as a location, as you already had begun to look at it as an alternative. I mean, Resource Connection is on a bus line, and I would certainly, I'd be more than glad to support contributing the land. We've got plenty of land out there from that perspective. It sits right across the street from TCC's South Campus.
Judge, with all due respect, we're not in a position to build a completely new building with all the amenities that this building would need. We have the floor space here. We have the technology that can go in place here to build it right where it is. We're talking about a lot more money when we're talking about taking something from the ground up or even modifying some of the buildings that are out there, because once we rent it from you out there, so I know the difficulty with those facilities and the way they were laid out. So that's something that's not, at this time, would not be feasible for us to do. Back to your point about the intermodal bus line there. Certainly people coming in and out of there, but we don't have any statistics as to know or to say that they're always there. But I do know this, and I'm around this town. I've been here all my life. I've been in the system 40 years. People come and go. They don't linger there. They're in and out of there, and they're gone. And so I'm still trying to understand what the problem is.
The problem is they can't get off the bus there under the terms of their probation and the terms of the parole. At least unless we can get the judges to make some exception, and I don't know that we've had any conversations. That may be possible.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm saying is it's not a matter that they get off and get on another bus. By terms of at least what I understand from the DA's office, they can't get off. Period.
Who's going to monitor that and patrol it?
I don't know.
Nobody.
Who knows where they're at? They're all over the place.
Well, and I hear what you're saying from that standpoint. Again, it's just a situation of it. It's a law. Who monitors the law? I don't know. And maybe the judges are more than willing to say, okay, let's
Judge, these kids haven't broken the law. They're looking for a future. And also, we're looking for a future for them. And I feel like this is the best location to have these kids because of the location of all these things that would enrich these kids' lives. And so having those folks there, or whoever's coming in and out, certainly we can put some things in place to monitor. If it means bringing extra police down there, extra security, that'll happen. We can keep them from coming across or being involved in our establishment altogether. That's not a problem. But if we're going to use the excuse of people coming in and out of anywhere to stop kids from getting a proper education, I think that's ludicrous.
Mr. Dansby, I'm not suggesting that. And I'm not suggesting that I don't support the school. I support the school. I feel like it is, obviously, it is an absolutely fantastic school. I'm not suggesting that the security's there. You know, basically what I guess, and maybe we just don't think about these folks. But the bottom line is we're asking them to break the law if they use our bus system, and in many instances they don't have other forms of transportation. We're basically saying that just, don't come into downtown, period.
Judge, I understand that, but the law is broken every single day all over the city. I can also tell you that in West Fort Worth, around Western Hills Elementary School, that no kid walks because of where those sex offenders have been placed in apartments out there in that area. And so every kid rides the bus from that area. And so we know how to protect our kids. We haven't had one single incident out there.
Mr. Dansby, Tarrant County is one of the greatest counties in the nation. And we have achieved that milestone because we have been focusing on the future. And a very important cornerstone of the future is education for all children. And I think everyone in this room and on this bench agree with that. Today, we simply trying to obtain different perspectives on this decision, to obtain some time, to ponder about it, to think about it. And ultimately, I believe that we will make the right decision, whatever that will be. So I commend you for your hard work and your passion in advocating for the future of our county. And rest assured that we will make the right decision.
And I do appreciate, I understand and support this school 100%. So please don't consider my questions, don't consider my thing. It is not being very proud of the school that you've developed here. I think it's fantastic. I hope that you do have other schools in the downtown area. And I support that. I just don't necessarily feel like that this is the best location for a downtown school in this particular area. Support it 100%. I support the school 100%, and I support what your school board is doing. And I appreciate the opportunity to have a dialogue and to have an open, civil dialogue about the issue. And then, as Andy mentioned, as Commissioner Wynn mentioned, I think we'll come and reach a decision and then move forward. So I want to thank you very much for coming out here today.
I just hope the 2 weeks delay doesn't interfere with your schedule this year.
Sir, I appreciate that. We're flexible. We've already got some wheels turning now to make sure that we can meet our deadline if possible, if this happens. So I just want to tell all of you that I really appreciate the fact that you've given us the opportunity to come before you, but also that we do need this school. It's very important to the Fort Worth Independent School District, but very important right now to about 240 girls who are, and plus 75 more that are looking for a place for next school year. I certainly wouldn't, with the success we've had with these young women, I certainly wouldn't want to stifle that by having to cut back on the amount of kids that could actually go into that program each year. We're on our way to be one of the best in the nation and to take pride in it, but what better pride than to have a school like other places across this nation that has a school for girls and others right downtown Fort Worth, to have a presence there. I think it's very important for us. I just left Miami-Dade where they've got several schools downtown, and they're not having any problems. I guess they have probably some of the same conditions that we do, but they've been able to manage, and they have some stellar schools downtown. And so I'd just like to have us to have a presence. But the important issue is not being downtown as much as having a central location for our kids that they can come from north, south, east, and west, and centrally, but also, get some of those kids that maybe end up living downtown. So, again, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Before you leave, Mr. Dansby, would you introduce the members of your advisory board who have come this morning?
I think they just want to be here as advisors.
Yeah, I know they want to hide, but...
Why don't you guys stand up and introduce yourselves?
I'm Deborah Ferguson. I'm the chair of the advisory council. Carol Johnson-Durandis is vice chair of the advisory council. David and Russell is a member of the advisory council supporting with ISD and everybody up in Norway.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, ladies, for coming.
My name is Wayne Warren. I'm the program director for AID, program manager for
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of February the 12th.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have two proclamations or resolutions this morning. The first is a proclamation regarding the American Red Cross Month of 2013, and I believe we have Larry Bushwar and Melissa Patterson are going to come forward. Well, I see Larry, but I'm not sure I see Melissa. Come on forward, Larry. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you. Here it is.
I'm going to read the proclamation, and whereas March is American Red Cross Month, a special time to recognize and thank our heroes, those who volunteer, donate blood, take life-saving courses, or provide financial donations to support an organization whose mission is to help those in need. And whereas during American Red Cross Month, we would like to remember those who help all of us here in Tarrant County area by giving their time to help their neighbor, and to thank our heroes, our volunteers, blood donors, class takers, and financial supporters who help us assist those in need. And whereas the Tarrant County area, the Red Cross works tirelessly through its 40 employees and 771 volunteers to help with disaster strikes, to help when disaster strikes, when someone needs life-saving blood, the comfort of a helping hand, 24-hour support to members of the military, veterans, and their families, and provides training in CPR, aquatic safety, and first aid. And whereas across the country, the American Red Cross responds to nearly 70,000 disasters a year, providing some 400,000 services to military members, veterans, and civilians, collects and distributes about 40% of the nation's blood supply, and trains more than 7 million people in first aid, water safety, and other life-saving skills every year. And whereas our community depends on the Red Cross, which relies on donations of time, money, and blood to fulfill its humanitarian mission, and despite these challenging economic times, the American Red Cross continues to offer help and comfort to those in need. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim March 2013 as American Red Cross Month. And be it further resolved that we encourage all Americans to support this organization and its noble humanitarian mission. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 26th day of February 2013. I'll move its approval.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
I want to thank the court and the citizens of Tarrant County for supporting the American Red Cross, and we look forward to serving you from now on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have a recognition award for Commissioner Brooks.
In keeping with our custom in Precinct 1, over the weekend, we recognized Mr. Ronald Ethan Coulter, a young man, a student of the Fort Worth ISD, who achieved the rank of Eagle Scout.
Awesome.
This recognition has already been presented, so I ask its ratification by this court.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of court, thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have two additional items. The first, we're requesting that the court approve an interlocal cooperative agreement between Tarrant County and the City of Fort Worth as it relates to the Trinity River Vision Project.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Finally, Your Honor, members of the court, on item number 2, we're requesting that the court consider and approve an exception to the county's travel policy within region travel as it relates to JP Precinct 4.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Just want to make a comment on that last item. I want to thank Judge Wright. She has 5 individuals that are going to this program in Rockwall. If we share rooms, the rooms are free. And so we have 4 of the 5 that are going to double up so that the rooms are free, and the other one is at half price. So they have really worked to diminish the cost of that particular activity. And we appreciate Judge Wright's efforts on that.
Well, and getting over to Rockwall on a daily basis is not an easy task.
Right. No, it's not.
Getting through Hearst is an all-day affair.
Yes, it is. Living out there, I can attest to that fact.
I've been through that.
45 minutes one day just to get out of my neighborhood.
But the bridge to God
Is there. That's right. My church folks can now get to God, and they need it. Ms. Tidwell, you want to follow that?
I don't guess I have a choice, do I?
That's right.
We have 3 items for the court to consider this morning. The first item, actually 2, one's on consent. The first item is approved release of the depository collateral of approximately $34,892,000 as outlined in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And the other item we have is to receive and file the quarterly investment report for the period ended December 31st, 2012.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Glenn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
We have 7 items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item, we're asking the court to approve an extension of project employment in the district clerk's office. The district clerk is requesting a 1-year extension of a project employee who's been assigned to the multiple-year scanning project. The extension, if approved, will take us through March of next year, of 2014, and there's no impact to the general fund.
Move approval.
This is for the clerk, the district clerk.
Mm-hmm. He's buying lunch today.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, we're asking the court to approve an out-of-class pay extension for the tax office. Mr. Wright is requesting an out-of-class pay extension for an employee who's been assigned the responsibility of the motor vehicle manager. The request, if approved, will take us through June of 2013 at an impact to the general fund of approximately $2,500.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4, we're asking the court to approve changes for the table of organization to add 7 project employees to the IT Department. These employees, when employed, will support the adult case management system. They will aid in development, monitoring, and backfill as necessary. The annual cost we're estimating to be approximately $522,384 to non-debt capital. And these funds are available in the current budget.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our fifth item, we're asking the court to approve the hourly rates of Tarrant County's workers' comp attorney. Carolyn Mitchell, who's a board-certified attorney, has served as our workers' comp attorney for the past 20 years. She represents us at contested case hearings, extent of injury disputes, and trials when necessary. Ms. Mitchell is requesting an increase in her hourly rate from $135 an hour to $150 per hour effective March 1st. We're estimating the fiscal impact to be approximately $26,250, and funds are available in our workers' comp self-insurance fund.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote.
Excuse me. 20 years is an awful long time to have a lock on a public concession. It would seem to me that at some point we need to give others the opportunity to at least offer their services for this position. Just a comment.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our sixth item, we're asking the court to approve the 15th Annual Tarrant County Employee Picnic at Six Flags Over Texas. The court knows that this is something that our employees look forward to every year. Your approval of this contract will require a 10% deposit or $5,842. And again, there are funds available in this year's current budget.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We have one final item, and I'll have Ms. Worthy step forward to cover this item with the court. And while she's coming, if the court will indulge me, I'd like to make two introductions this morning. We have two of our most recently hired employees with us this morning, and they chose a fabulous day to be here. Dr. Amber Norris is our new wellness coordinator. Dr. Norris has over 7 years in the wellness field. She has degrees in fitness management, exercise science and health promotions, and exercise physiology. And she's really excited to help us and help our employees to become more well. So we're very happy to have Amber Norris.
Welcome aboard.
And just to make things interesting, our second employee is also an Amber Duckworth. Amber Duckworth began with us yesterday. She's the Assistant Benefits Administrator, so she'll be working with Joyce. We all know that we have a very complex year and challenging year ahead of us in benefits, and so we look forward to Ms. Duckworth helping us to roll out our programs.
Welcome aboard, both of you.
And I would just like to extend the invitation to Dr. Amber to join the Obesity Prevention Policy Council. Ms. Worthy will make sure you know all about that. Thank you.
And so I'll ask Ms. Worthy to come up and handle our last item.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was here in late January to discuss the consideration of an employee wellness incentive program change. As you know, as part of our rewards program, we offer a health risk assessment on an annual basis, and employees have to participate in a pre- and post-health risk assessment in order to be eligible for the rewards program. And as we move forward with the wellness program and want to encourage our employees to know their health risk so that they can address those health risks, we are considering the option of incenting employees to either participate in the health risk assessment or an annual physical so that they will know their health risk and hopefully can address those under the care of a physician. In 2012, we had a little over 1,200 people participate in our health risk assessment. That's only about 30% of our benefits eligible employees. Our goal for next year, we'd like to increase that to 1,850 in this new program. The health risk assessment includes both a questionnaire and biometric measurements. And then also for our annual physicals, if an employee were to choose to go that methodology, there is not a copay for annual physicals. That is part of our program already with our health plan. When we discussed this back in January, there were some questions about departmental participation, and I have provided you a list of the departments and their participation in the health risk assessment, as well as how many of their employees went on to work the rewards program. And I told Mr. Renoir that I was going to give his department kudos. They actually were the only department that had 100% participation in the health risk assessment, and they had 50% participation in the rewards program. And as you can see, all the departments are listed there with their participation. And we've discussed that maybe next year we might want to do some sort of a healthy competition of some sort to encourage departments to kind of work out some kind of competition so that they can get more participation. So under our consideration for the various incentives, we have three options for you. The Wellness Committee has met additional time since our last discussions. Our first option to incent employees to participate would be to, if those employees did not either go to the health risk assessment or have an annual physical, that would mean that they would forfeit that $240 that we currently give to each employee in their flexible spending account. And that would apply to both employees that choose our plan and employees that opt out. So we already give each employee $240, and if they didn't participate, they would forfeit that money. Okay? The HRA currently awards employees a $50 incentive, and that would remain in place under this option. We've provided you some statistics on the participation in the flexible spending accounts, and under each of our options, we've tried to provide you some pros and cons of those choices. Of course, one of the pros for this option would that employees would be able to keep that $240, and they'd continue to get the $50 for the health risk assessment. Now, some of the cons for this particular option, it would involve possibly some SAP configuration. It would involve some PEBC configuration, and so that might have to go before the PEBC board for review to consider that. And then as we move forward with the changes in our health care plans, the status of the Section 125, which is the flexible spending account, is unknown. Depending on what kind of plans we go with next year, we may have changes in the way our flexible spending accounts are allowed to be used. And of course, there are always ceilings on how much can go into those accounts.
Talk to me a little bit about when you say that it could have an administrative standpoint from PBC. Can you give me an example?
As I understand it, because of the way the PEBC gives the information to our administrators. For example, PayFlex administers our flexible spending accounts, and Joyce, I'm sure, will stand up if I say something incorrect. And so those eligibility files have to go to PEBC. And so, right now, everybody gets that amount, so there would be some possible changes in the way that eligibility file would go to PayFlex, which might cause some configuration change on the PEBC end.
So would the answer to that be something where they would have to get, we talk about this health risk assessment, that there would be a certain time frame in which everyone either had to get a physical or comply with this health prior to the beginning of our calendar year. So they might have to have it done by October the 1st in order for us to be able to produce an eligibility file that said, here's the people who are going to get it.
Correct.
So that would be the part that we have to.
Correct.
But that really wouldn't require a PEBC board review.
As I understand it, based on our conversations with Diana Konjovic, our executive director, yes, that because of the way the eligibility data is given, that it may cause some configuration change for them. And I don't.
Is this true for opt-out employees too?
It would apply, all of these incentives and programs are offered to all employees, whether they are on our medical plan or not. So yes, that in this particular situation, the forfeiture of the 240 would apply to opt-outs. So right now, the opt-outs get the 240 that all employees get, and then they get an additional $1,200. And so they would continue to get that $1,200 for the opt-out portion, but if they didn't participate, they wouldn't get that 240.
And Judge Whitley, I'm not sure it would require board approval, but there will be some configuration. You know, we send our eligibility files to PBC, and then COGS IT department has to do their configurations to send that eligibility data onto our 12 vendors. So in this case, it's PayFlex. So they will have to do some configuration to make sure that PayFlex receives the information correctly.
So under option 2, we have laid out an increased incentive for participation in the health risk assessment and a new incentive for an annual physical, which would equal $100. So whether you chose to do the health risk assessment or an annual physical, the employees would be eligible for a $100 cash incentive. It would be processed through payroll and subject to taxes in a similar fashion to the way the $50 incentive works now. And of course, the pro to that is it's just an increased cash incentive. Sometimes money talks and gets folks interested. When we went from giving no incentive to the health risk assessment to increasing it to, or giving the $50, we almost doubled the amount of participation. So, you know, hopefully we would get a big bump if we were to offer this option. And the con of that is that there is no consequences to the non-participants. So if you don't participate, you're not really losing anything by not having an annual physical or participate in the health risk assessment.
But really, on an annual basis, I mean, as a result of these HRAs, we have detected things in certain employees which basically they've almost immediately been sent to the doctor or said, we've got issues.
We have some, we have some stories where employees who did not know their health risk found that they had catastrophic health risk, and yes, they were immediately referred by our vendor to seek medical treatment, and some of those people are some of our biggest success stories in hindsight, that they've come back to Kay, our current wellness coordinator, and have talked about how they began, you know, eating better or exercise programs or whatever was necessary, possibly medication, and have gotten those risk factors under control. So, you know, that's one of the most important parts of this step, is to just get people aware of what their risk factors are and to begin treatment of those so that we can treat those risk factors kind of pre instead of post when they can become catastrophic and tragic.
Your problem with option 2 is that it's all carrot and no stick.
I don't think that we have a problem with it. We're just trying to kind of lay out the different pros and cons of.
I understand, Ms. Worthy.
I think HR.
You sound like a politician.
You know, HR likes option 2 and 3. So.
The whole purpose of this program is to encourage people to be more proactive and take ownership of their health.
Correct.
Therefore, over a period of time, reducing the cost of Tarrant County relating to health care. Am I correct?
That is our
That's the whole
goal.
purpose.
That is absolutely our goal. You know, as we know, as health care costs rise and as there are considerations with taxes, as the judge mentioned earlier, we want employees to be stronger consumers of their own and more responsible for their own health, and to take a proactive role, as you mentioned.
And we do give employees 2 options for the health risk assessment. We can do it in-house, or they can go to their primary doctor.
No, currently the way the health risk assessment works is we have a vendor that comes on site at various locations spread over a 2-week period of time, and the employees go online, or they can do it in a paper form, fill out the questionnaire, which are discussing health habits and those kinds of things, and then they come in and do their biometric measurements. Now they can, if they've had a physical and had their blood work up recently, they can bring that in and provide it, but it's not an either or. They have to go through that process right now for the health risk assessments.
Okay. And that will not change?
That is correct.
But could we not implement a policy that basically says that, you know, whether it be October 1st or whatever date we say, that you either have to get an annual physical and or an HRA assessment in order to qualify for whatever we do? Whether, I mean, we could say that an annual physical within that time frame would suffice or would be an acceptable alternative to the HRA.
Are you saying for the rewards program, or are you saying for this incentive that we're talking about today?
Yes.
Okay. For the incentive program that we're talking about today, absolutely. It is part of this program, that we would allow you to be incented, whichever plan you all choose, with either an HRA or an annual physical. The Wellness Committee has had some discussions of allowing an annual physical in place of the health risk assessment, but we kind of haven't gotten there yet, and certainly that might be the next step is in the next, plan year to do that.
Okay.
That has been discussed.
Would that include some standard form that you would want the physician to fill out?
And that's part of the reason we didn't do that this year, because some people may have already had their annual physical, and by implementing it in kind of our mid-wellness plan year, it would make people have to go back and get that form. So if, in the next cycle, that may be something we would consider, so that we would kind of be doing apples to apples.
Well, let me ask, along the lines of the form, nobody sees the form on our side of the deal, so where does the form go and what's the purpose for it?
Well, currently, what happens is when you fill out the questionnaire and you get your biometric measurements done, our vendor, which is Plano Medical Center, they actually create a report that is mailed to the employee's home. Yes, you are correct. No one from HR sees any of that information. That is all protected health information and confidential, and is totally handled by that third-party administrator. And the employees get a really nice report that identifies their health risk. It gives them suggestions for improvements, and actually they have access if they want to call and speak to a nurse with Plano to assist them with.
But under our current vendor, United Healthcare, if the doctor, I would assume, and this may be a wrong assumption, that if the doctor goes through the physical, that they're going to have that similar type of discussion. Whereas these individuals that do our HRAs are not, they don't have the time, nor do they maybe have the expertise to have those conversations. So I would think that if we had them getting a physical, and that would be an even better alternative than just going through the HRA. And then hopefully United, in our wellness program, I would hope that the physicals in some way end up showing up to UHC, and they can take that and then evaluate and do something to help in our wellness deal.
Certainly, yes, you are correct. Some of the conversations you would have with the physicians aren't happening at the health risk assessment. However, some of the biometrics that we take at the health risk assessment probably aren't done at an annual physical. The body fat measurements typically aren't done at an annual physical, and we do those with the health risk assessment. The challenge with doing just a physical and using United Healthcare, we offer our wellness programs to all of our employees, whether they are on our benefits plan or not. So for those employees that opt out, we wouldn't have a way to gather and collect that data in a central fashion, because United Healthcare only offers their wellness program to those employees that are in the United Healthcare plan. So to do the United Healthcare health risk assessment questionnaire, just the basic questionnaire, you have to have United Healthcare insurance. So those opt-outs would not be eligible.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of a challenge
Yeah.
that we've struggled with.
Okay.
So. And then our option 3 is to make a change to healthcare premiums. So that would be our medical premium, not the dental, just the medical, and create the cost structure in a way that it would incent employees to participate in either a health risk assessment or an annual physical. And this would be developed as a cost-neutral plan. And so that's one of the pros of that program. This program would also take some SAP configuration and probably not necessarily a lot of configuration on the PEBC side like option 1, but there would be some SAP configuration.
So when you're saying a cost neutral, that means we're going to have a premium and then we're going to penalize and add something on, or are we going to add something on and then...
Yes, one of those two options.
Yeah, you're getting after me, so now you're just going to answer yes.
Yes, sir.
Kind of hard for me to come back at you after that, isn't it?
One of those two options. So however we designed our cost structure, it would...
and that's part of the
designed to be
overall
cost-effective.
discussion that we're going to have over the next couple of months. As you will recall, last year when we were discussing this, we had talked about the possibility of incentivizing just a couple of, or disincentivizing a couple of bad choices in the interpretation of the health industry. So this might be just one of those things that we're going to, when we decide whether we're using a carrot or a stick, and how we start off to evaluate that, that's going to be one of, this may be just one more thing that's added to that laundry list of things that we want to either incentivize or disincentivize from that perspective.
And we have gone back and spoken since our last meeting to our current vendor, Plano Medical Center, who we have under contract to do our health risk assessment. And they said for this first year with this program that they would collect EOBs from employees that want to submit an annual physical as opposed to going through the health risk assessment at no additional cost. They would set up a unique fax line, and employees could fax in their EOB, which is a very, matter whether you're an opt-out or not, most health insurance plans have some sort of an EOB that you can access, and so employees would be able to send those in, and that would be proof that they had an annual physical.
And then I wouldn't have to hold that little thing that tells me I'm obese.
Correct. It tells me the same thing.
You need to let that little guy go.
Yeah, I'm going to let him go next time, I'll tell you.
We might throw him. Yeah. Then with regard to the cost, under option 1, obviously that one's a little bit challenging to figure out the cost because of participation. The impact to that particular option will be to our Section 125 funds. As you know, right now, forfeitured Section 125 funds support our wellness program, a good part of our wellness program. And so as we move forward, we'll have to take those things in consideration as to how those forfeitures are looking if we make changes to that. Under option 2, and that was the added or the incentive change to $100, that would add about $194,000 based on our estimate of the $1,850, but from going from $50 to just health risk assessments at about 1,200 people doing that to increasing that to $100 and hoping that we get around 1,800.
So that does figure in a little bit, but on the other hand, if miraculously we ended up with 3,000, then
it could be, yes.
It takes that a significantly higher.
It does.
How many are currently getting physicals?
Right, we
That's
don't.
right. I mean,
right.
that's the other.
And all of
TK's got a puzzled look on his face.
all of these have a check.
You take 1,800 people and you multiply that by $100, it's only $180,000.
No, I agree with what he's saying. It's not going to be an additional cost. We'd have to get 3,600 in order for it to, or somewhere between 3,000 and that to get that.
Because if you get 18, and we know we're paying a certain amount out now, 1,200 or whatever it is times 50.
That'd be 60.
60,000. So it'd be about 120,000 if you hit your 1,800.
So which option would be closest to an HSA as we migrate toward the...
I don't think any of them have, as I understand the HSA, have any overlap with an HSA. Whether going forward, if we have an HSA in the future, and for those of you that don't know what an HSA, that's a health spending account, and that's an option that may be considered for future health care plans. That is an account whereby money may be put in by both the employer and the employee that is used for paying health care costs.
And if you do the HSA, it pretty well takes from a standpoint of our flex spending account, which is already going to have been limited at $2,500, we could still have a flex spending account, but it could only be used for dental, vision, and no.
Not-
Some certain medical, but not.
Yeah, it's called the limited purpose flexible spending account. And we do have a question on the table that I don't know that we know the complete answer to, is if we go forward and do a consumer-driven plan with an HSA, can we continue to have a flexible spending account in some other form with our PPO?
Okay.
And so that's one of the things we still are working on finding out for sure, because I think we've had a little bit of confusion.
So from a standpoint of sake of, or just administrative simplicity, probably the easiest one is just simply increasing it to $100 from $50.
Yes, sir.
The one that, and then I don't know which one drives the best. I mean, our goal should be which one drives the most folks to getting the annual physical or the HRA.
Correct.
And I don't know which one of those does that, but do I hear at least HR saying that from an administrative standpoint, you don't have a...
The Wellness Committee is most supportive of option one, which is the flexible spending account option. From HR's perspective, we have some concerns about the administration of it and what's going to happen to flexible spending accounts going forward.
But this is a short-term stopgap measure anyhow.
Possibly, I don't know. Would this be something we would bring into the future? You know, when we started the $50 incentive for the health risk assessment, we brought that to you each year, and and it's kind of now an expectation of all employees at that. So once you do it more than probably a year or two, you know, it's a little harder to stop doing it, not to say that we can't. And I also want to bring up one of the other challenges or the unknowns of doing this is the balance of the increased cost of if more people do annual physicals and or an HRA, that's going to have a cost associated with it. The identification of those health risks that may go with that part of it and what that might cost us versus the cost savings of people finding out those health risks early before they have something catastrophic that can get very, very expensive and, as I said, tragic in nature. And so I don't think anyone knows the balance of that.
Can you quantify that, though? It doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but if you can project.
I'm not standing here today.
I know,
can't,
not
but,
today.
And I don't even.
Because looking at here, for 2,554 employees, we are spending.
You mean to hold it back over here for you?
$613,000 on the FSA, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
If we could justify a return on investment of 50% or so, that will make it a lot of sense.
Correct.
To invest in the wellness program. So you're telling me there is no way that we can project that estimation?
We can work on it. We can sit down with maybe risk management budget and maybe even see if we can get some information from United Healthcare on how many employees actually had a physical. That may be a way.
Yeah, because if we put all Tarrant County employees onto this program, that number is going to go up, right? Right now we only have about 2,500 enlisted in the wellness program.
Well, we have about 1,200 that participated in the health risk assessment. And we have about 3,700 benefits eligible employees.
Right, but you have everybody will get the FSA money, regardless of participation or not.
Yes, that is correct. Right now, they currently all get the $240. That is correct. And in order,
some of them don't use it all.
Some of them don't use it. So losing it might not be an impact to them. It's a small percentage of that 3,700.
The health risk assessment includes a blood draw.
Yes, sir.
Does that blood draw test for PSA?
No, sir. The blood draw is for basic metabolics, cholesterol, glucose, triglycerides, those types of things. No, it does not. It's not a full blood workup.
PSA, GK, prostate specific.
I know exactly what that is.
Antigen.
No, it does, something to do.
Yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with PSA either.
I think Jim fell off the stool back there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would it not be helpful to include that test, and how would that affect the cost?
I don't know how it would affect the cost. We'd have to ask the vendor. I don't know.
I mean, you got the blood anyway.
You know, we really need to check on that. Commissioner, we're going to go ahead and check on that. That's important for us.
But, I mean, I kind of go along with, we've offered them an incentive via the $50. That's worked to some extent. I think the possibility of removing the 240 may be, at least for, if we've got, if we've just got 500 that might not impact, and again, the goal is what can we do that will end up incentivizing people to get in there as rapidly as possible, or to make sure that on an annual basis they're getting. I agree with Commissioner Brooks. I think the PSA, I think it's a fairly costly lab test, but it's still something that I think would be something that I'd like to see included. Quite honestly, if they're getting the annual physical, then the doctor is making that conscious decision as to whether the PSA should be done or not. So in that instance, I think we're better off to incentivize them to go to the physical. But that's neither here. I mean, I think that's just something we ought to check with on that deal. I agree with you.
I don't care how it's done.
You're right.
But I think that if you catch 2 or 3 of our employees in the early stages of prostate cancer, then you'll save a heck of a lot of money in the long run that will more than pay for the cost of administering the test.
And I really think that the thing we need to really try to stress to our employees is that probably in the course of these annual, whether it be the HRAs or whether it be the annual physicals, we have historically caught 1 or 2 things that have probably paid for everything, the cost of this program, and have potentially extended that employee's life because we did catch something that was not detected or had not been detected up to that point.
And again, going back to the consideration of a health risk assessment versus an annual physical, we probably should take that back to the Wellness Committee and let them make a decision as to whether that can, would substitute, or whether we want to do that instead of a health risk assessment. Maybe require an employee to do an online questionnaire in addition to having some sort of physical. We'll certainly consider that.
Robin, since all of this is kind of, is there a specific reason why you need action on this today versus it being a part of the overall conversation on the benefits?
I think part of the reason is we need to start communicating that to our employees as we get near to when we do the health risk assessments. We need to, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to expand the places and the time frame which we do our health risk assessments. Are we going to have more downtown ones and add a couple out in the precincts, whatever, and we need to begin to be able to start scheduling those. And the other thing, if you all wanted to approve the concept today and come back and revisit the actual reward or incentive, we could do that. And we could begin to work on, with our vendor to expand those dates, begin to reserve those dates, what have you, if we thought that the concept going forward was that we were going to do this, and then we could come back and bring those 3 options of how we incent employees.
How do y'all feel about from a concept basis, that this is a conceptual, something that we're going to want to move toward, and just we're going to have to detail it out?
I'm good with it.
I'm good with it. And if option 1 seems like a good option. I like that accountability component.
It's certainly, and I think our unknown is the FSA, which hopefully we'll have some more knowledge about in the next couple of months.
And I too would probably be leaning toward the option one. But I think each one of us may have some concerns, and what I would just simply ask is that if you have concerns about one way or the other, just at least express that to Robin.
That's fine.
And then she'll take that back to the wellness, and then that will all, hopefully, will be kind of included in our discussion that we talked about earlier, and I think we're going to see a lot more on that as we begin our work sessions for March and part of April.
Yeah. If you can also consider, with so many employees leaving money on the table, I have to think that we need to double up on our outreach. I don't see anybody would be leaving money on the table. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. You're correct.
Right.
And as I recall, I mean, at one point I know that was somewhere in the neighborhood of $750,000 to $1 million a year.
Yeah. I think we have done some communication pushes, and I think more people are spending it, and that's a little bit of a double-edged sword in that the forfeitures support the wellness program, and so again, if we quit having forfeitures in that program, then we'll have to decide how we're going to fund some of the pieces of the wellness.
That's what, I mean, basically we've taken that to purchase equipment, exercise equipment, and the HRAs have been funded out of that.
Our teaching, our instructors for our fitness classes, for a variety of things are paid for. But the equipment is the big one.
As well as the admin costs for the flex spending.
Good point. And that's about how much? How much are we?
That's about $90,000 a year.
So that, then 75 on our.
The wellness budget runs about $250,000 to $300,000 annually for equipment and the various pieces of the wellness program that's paid for out of that.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other? Did you have something?
No, I'm curious. Did you get direction? We need a motion on this.
I think we just said that I think there was a consensus that we were in favor of proceeding forward with this, with the concept. Yeah, the concept.
Great.
And could go from there. Public Health, Ms. Brewer.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
We have one item for your approval this morning, and this is the interim financing for fiscal year 2013 grant Brian White HIV/AIDS Treatment Modernization Act Part A. Our one outstanding interim funding was approved this morning in the consent item, so we have no outstanding items. And this one, actually, we got notice yesterday of partial funding, which will more than cover what we're asking for. So in 2 weeks, we'll bring that actual amount back to you for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any impact on sequestration?
We're not hearing anything definite. We have taken action within the department to look at. We've been told from NACHA that the worst would be a 5.9%.
Okay.
But we haven't been told that by any of our programs, definitely, at this point. But we have asked everybody to look at that scenario, and we have a course of action if we need to take it.
Okay. Thank you very
And
much.
The biggest impact would be in 14.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Beecham. How are you?
Good. We have 3 items for your consideration this morning. Our stuff is pretty dull compared to the
He's looking for something.
bridge to God and the obesity meter.
Move it along.
We have 3 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-050, sale recycled paper. Our recommendation will be toward the high bidder, Corrugated Service selling us, or buying from us rather, mixed ledger at $151 a ton and cardboard at $109 a ton.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 2 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-034. This is for the Tarrant County Clerk finish-out project at the Charles F. Griffin Subcourthouse. Recommendation be to award the low bidder, Concord Commercial Services Incorporated, amount of $128,612. If this is approved, we're seeking contract approval as well as acceptance of the payment and the performance bond.
Have you had a discussion with them concerning their DBE participation?
Not officially, but we will.
Please have that discussion. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Last item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-036, our new contract for automotive and light truck transmission repair. Recommendation to be awarded on a per enterprise basis, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fickus.
I have an interlocal agreement with the city of Southlake for work to be performed on North White's Chapel, and that's item K1A, and K1B is to begin that work. Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Appointments. There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
A motion is second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have several items to bring to you today. The first one, item A, concerns a monthly update from the hospital district. Mr. Early is here to address the court at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Manius. Judge, Commissioners, want to give you an update on a few. Good afternoon. Want to give you an update on a few items that we have before the hospital district. In spite of Robin's presentation, I did want to give you a quick update on our wellness program that we're doing at JPS, and congratulations for all your work. And Amber, we'll be happy to help you with our fitness team and what we're doing at JPS. Our gentleman who runs our fitness program, his name is Mondo, and he will scare you into fitness. He's a former New York Giant in Jet, actually, and we respect him immensely. What we have done is this year we started for those of you who may be familiar with the television show, The Biggest Loser, we have started that, and we're in our second week of people signing up to lose weight. And we have already had 300 people sign up for that program, and we'll provide incentives for weight loss. And we're real impressed with that. We've redone 2 of our stairwells so that people can use our stairwells for walking and exercise programs. And then, of course, in April, we'll have our green space where St. Joseph's was.
So when you redo a stairwell, you just paint it, or what do you?
Well, what we did was we put a rubberized base to it, and then colored the stair steps and put a yellow top to them so you can see, and it really makes it conducive to going up. It's easier to going up, going down is a little more difficult.
Put them next door to an elevator so you can walk down and ride up.
That's our third project. That's our Commissioner Johnson project, and we're working on that one where you just stand there and you feel better when you get done. You convince yourself it's better, but we will do that. But those programs are being used by people with walking paths and stairwell for exercise, and then our outdoor events that we'll be having in the spring. So we're pleased with that. And then we've had over, in our first week, 650 sign up, just like y'all, 650 sign up for our screening process as well. So I applaud the county for what you're doing. And certainly, I think that's an example for all of us. And certainly us in the healthcare field need to be doing that as well. We have, you may have heard, we have, with our JPS Foundation, we have a new foundation board chair. I'm very honored that Mayor Laura Wheat, the mayor of Westlake, has agreed to serve as our chair of our foundation. She is rotating off the co-chair of the National Cancer Association, and she will rotate off that and become our chair for our foundation. She's a very impressive person, and I think her skill in fundraising and her talent that she brings to our foundation board will be incredibly welcomed, and I'm very excited and pleased. I want to also take the opportunity to thank Mr. Manius and his crew. We had a last part of our parking lot over off of our medical office building was completed, and I appreciate your efforts to work on that and all of you in creating that. That was a small little piece that we had, and now it allows all of our employees to park in that lot, and more importantly, our patients to park up front and have easy access to their patient visits.
I believe actually that was one of some of the road crews from our precincts.
It was, and I appreciate all you all doing that. Appreciate you all heading that up and doing that project for us. Obviously, everything revolves back to you as commissioners, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the efforts that you gave us to allowing that to be a completed project. That makes a big difference for our employees and our patients. So thank you for your direction, and thank you for your crews. You all made that happen for us. The last item I have was brought to us by General Counsel, and it is a recommendation to at least entertain that you think about for your subsequent meetings from now, and that is currently everything that is a real estate transaction of $250,000 or more comes to the court for approval. We're certainly fine with that approval. General Counsel suggested in this day and time with increasing prices of most real estate that may be increased from a $250,000 amount to an amount of your choice. But that would remove some of the smaller items, and we're not asking for any any action today, but would certainly be happy to have General Counsel here to suggest
And that's any real estate and/or construction project, I believe.
Yes, it is.
You can live with $500,000.
I can live with whatever you suggest I live with, but $500,000 is a fine amount.
Okay, let's see if we can't get something on the books about contract for maybe $500,000.
Yes.
As we've sat here and talked about our benefits today, I'm wondering where y'all are in what you offer to, one, your employees, and what discussions y'all have had about this tax or the possibility on there, and then also, what do you offer for your retirees?
A couple things. First of all, I'd have to check back on what we offer our retirees.
And maybe that's just, let's not worry about it today, but if that could be something that you would, maybe in future presentations that we could talk about, or as we begin some of our discussions centered around our employees, if you could provide us with some information about what the hospital district offers.
I'd be happy to, and happy to do that. And then also, we'll be happy for our wellness programs and anything else we do, show you all everything that we do. We've really enhanced that program with rewards and recognition and incentives and programs like that. So we're doing everything that we can, and some of those are probably very similar to what y'all do in our efforts to get people to comply. And Commissioner Wynn, to your comment as to why people would leave money on the table for those programs, I don't quite understand that, but it's always a challenge to get people to take care of their health needs and to watch what they do, watch what they eat. And the thing that we've been proclaiming is know your numbers. Know what your glucose levels are, know what your cholesterol levels are, know what some of the easy tests that are out there that can help and save your life and make you a healthier person. We were shocked last year when we did a small walk around the hospital. We did blood pressure tests before we did the walk. We had a few people that we suggested not do the walk because their blood pressure was a lot higher than what they knew or expected. So sometimes you might feel that your numbers, if you don't know them, might be great, and they're not. So I'll be happy to do a follow-up with you, Judge.
Well, and one other thing, Commissioner Wynn, I think a lot of times what we have found is that if the folks aren't putting the money in themselves, then they're not as invested in taking that and doing that. It seems amazing to me, but I was floored by the amount of dollars that our employees are not taking advantage of that are there on their behalf. So I think it's a lot of it is communication. I'm convinced that a lot of them just don't realize that money is sitting in an account and they can use it. So we need to, and as we roll out the whole benefits, some of the benefit revisions that I think we're going to be looking at, I think the communication part of that is going to be probably the most critical part of the whole discussion.
I also want to take a personal time also to thank G.K. Manius. He is doing our stairwell walk, and he took a picture for that. He has it's interesting, he has a headband on and a pair of green shorts. I didn't know they made those shorts anymore, but he did a poster for us to enhance, and we took the poster down because it hasn't been enhanced in stairwell walking, but I do appreciate you being willing to do that.
It goes with my leisure suit.
Well, we use that picture too, so thank you very much.
Robert, you have a representative from JPS on the Obesity Prevention Policy Council.
Yes, sir.
But it's not Mondo.
No, he just joined us.
Okay.
We can have Mondo there. Mondo goes out
I
and
would
does
like
appearances.
to have someone who can discuss the walking program and other things that you're doing
You bet.
from a policy standpoint to encourage healthy behaviors, and Mondo seems like
Yes.
the guy.
We should all have a Mondo. Fear Mondo. But I will have him there, and we will make that work.
Is Mondo training you for the Hotter Than Hell 100 this year?
He is. Yes, he is. Very much so. So I appreciate it. Commissioners, thank you very much.
How are we doing on the Arlington Medical Home? Are we moving forward okay?
Yes, we are moving very forward, and we will have a briefing. The condemnation court is in its open phase, so we will give you an update on that. We have one more element to end, and I think it's in 7 days, so we should be able to give you a briefing. And we'll be scheduling some meetings with you all individually on some other matters that will give you a briefing on some of the federal spending and what we can expect and what we can't expect. So thank you.
And then also, and maybe you and I can just talk about it offline, but a little bit about Mission Arlington and some of the stuff that they had going on there. And
very much so, and we're trying to figure out what we can do to provide any help and assistance.
Okay.
So thank you all very much for your indulgence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the court, we now go to item B, which is a discussion concerning the proposed West Nile virus program changes in public health. Dr. Curian is going to do this presentation, and immediately following that, she will also do the seasonal influenza update presentation.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Nationwide last year, 2012, represented the greatest number of West Nile virus human cases since 2003, and a third of those human cases were reported from our state, from the state of Texas. In the state of Texas, approximately 92% of those cases came from the North Texas region last year. So needless to say, we had a huge outbreak of West Nile virus last year, and the magnitude of this outbreak overwhelmed the local resources that were available for surveillance and response activities. So I'm here this morning to brief you on Tarrant County's proposed West Nile virus surveillance, or the mosquito virus surveillance program changes that were made based on reviewing our previous year's activities and in consultation with various local, state, and national experts in mosquito surveillance control and vector-borne diseases. The proposed changes will provide increased coverage of the West Nile virus surveillance, or I should say mosquito surveillance, and response activities in the unincorporated areas of Tarrant County. We will certainly aid all cities in their surveillance activities, provide guidance and make recommendations and support their response activities, but within their jurisdiction, the final determination and implementation of these response activities will be done by them. The most important and major change that we propose on making is our move towards implementing a formal integrated mosquito surveillance program here in Tarrant County. And the key to a good surveillance program or a robust surveillance program is to have a high rate of participation in the program. Last year, towards the end of the season, we had 29 cities participating in our surveillance program, the mosquito surveillance program. Based on the most recent survey that we completed, 35 cities have indicated that they will be willing to participate in our surveillance program this year. We hope this would increase, the number would increase as the season The other noteworthy change is our change in the timeline of our surveillance activities. In the past, we've begun our West Nile virus seasonal surveillance in the month of June. But taking into consideration the reporting lag time that we see with human cases and the incubation period, we are proposing to move that timeline to the month of May. So we will start our West Nile virus seasonal surveillance this year and in all the upcoming years in the month of May, or earlier if environmental factors indicate a need. Another important change is that we will be moving away from using human case data and use the mosquito surveillance data to primarily drive our response activities. As far as other changes that we are proposing to the surveillance activities, we propose to increase the number of mosquito traps countywide. In the past, we've had anywhere from 30 to 50 mosquito traps countywide during the West Nile virus season. And these traps were not fixed location traps. These were moving traps placed or established countywide in response to field observations or citizens' complaints. This year, we are proposing to have 150 fixed location traps countywide that will be strategically placed in areas with historical record of disease activities. And we are also proposing to have 50 additional traps that will be moving traps, not fixed location traps, but moving traps. Again, that will be established countywide in response to field observations and citizens' concerns. So we are proposing to have a total of 200 traps countywide. In order to effect the changes, the proposed changes in our surveillance activities, our response capabilities need to change. So we are proposing to double our adult deciding capabilities by increasing our ground-based ULV spray units from 2 to 4. We are also proposing to create 2 new positions that will be dedicated to the vector control program. One of these positions will be responsible for the operational control of the program, and the other one would be involved in the day-to-day operations, daily activities like establishing traps, processing samples, responding to citizens' concerns, etc. The other change I want to point out is, or the proposed change I want to point out is to not just limit ourselves to the seasonal surveillance activities, but to have sort of a year-round mosquito trapping and testing. So we will have off-season surveillance. A subset of the 200 traps, approximately 20 of them, will be strategically placed countywide during the off-season. In fact, we have started our off-season surveillance last week in the unincorporated area, and we haven't trapped any disease causing mosquitoes or the Culex species just yet. Adult deciding, as you know, is an important component of the multi-pronged approach to combat the West Nile virus. So we will be using adult deciding in response to a mosquito surveillance data. Like I mentioned earlier, we are moving away from relying heavily on the human case data because of the reporting time lag. So the mosquito surveillance data will primarily drive and guide our response activities. So adult deciding would be incorporated into our response activities much sooner. We are also currently working on placing a contingency contract for additional ground spraying and aerial spraying.
Do we have to go out for a RFP on that?
Yes, that's what currently we are.
And how soon are you planning on doing that? I mean, we're almost to March 1st.
As soon as we get concurrence from the court that you want to move forward on this plan.
Okay.
You have the details of the budget in your handout. What you see up in the slide is few selected items. So based on the itemized budget, the total expense for the proposed changes in the year 2013 is approximately $263,000. And in the year 2014, it will be approximately $250,000. I'll be happy to take any questions if you have it this time. Thank you for
Mr.
your time.
Manius, is this agendized so that we can vote on it today?
My name is not Mr. Manius, but I'd say yes. It's on the agenda. We can vote on it.
I move approval.
I have a couple questions after the second.
Well, and I guess, do we have some, I mean, What are you moving to approve, the expenditures or the overall plan?
The overall plan, including the expenditure.
Okay. We have a second?
I thought Andy seconded it.
No, Andy said you had a few questions.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Go ahead, Andy.
Can you clarify when you say moving away from the human case data? Can you clarify that doesn't mean that we are not going to emphasize on collecting that data and?
No, human case data will continue to be collected. That is the primary activity of our Division of Epidemiology. That will continue as it's been continued in the past. What I'm saying is that in the past we've the adult deciding got incorporated into a response plan if we had the support of human data also, not just the mosquito surveillance data. That is going to change. We are not going to wait for the human cases to occur in order to incorporate this into a response activity.
Because in the document here, you said you will minimize the human case data's value in response, in the response decision tree, except for overall situation understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with your decision in basically making decision based on the mosquitoes population data, so that way we can have a more proactive response instead of waiting until the human are infected. By then, it might be a little bit too late. I understand with that decision, but somehow we gotta keep that data
communicated better.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree that can be stated better. We'll work on it.
Commissioner Figgis?
In a briefing we had a couple of weeks ago, I guess in your office, Maine,
Yes.
there was a discussion about acquiring 2 additional, the equipment that tested for the mosquitoes. Is that still in your plan?
We've already acquired those 2 additional pieces of
You
equipment.
already done that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then you, in the second point, it was, you mentioned in here that you will fix the locations of the traps from year to year, right? And this is just for my knowledge. Don't mosquitoes move around?
They tend to. I'm not an entomologist, but to the best of my knowledge, yes, they do. But the idea here is to get better historical data that can be compared from year to year. And in order for that to happen,
but in order to achieve a better historical data, we might not have a true reflection of the present. Because mosquitoes move from location to location.
Yes, and
that's why they've got the extra 50
extra
traps
50
that
that's
can
been
move.
exactly. So we have the flexibility of moving those extra 50. And again, as we progress, this is the first year this new plan is going to be in place. As we progress, we'll certainly learn from this year and build on to our surveillance and response.
So we do have a plan to take that into consideration.
Yes,
I just want to make sure that we
the
have
flexibility. Yeah.
And then the third question I have, and I did mention this to y'all the last time we met, the jurisdictions within different cities. How are we working with them to have a very clear interlocal agreement to see whose responsibility is what and what all responsibilities are, so that we have some proactive coordination prior to the emergency actually occurring?
Yeah, there has been some informal or unofficial communications with the cities, but we have a kickoff meeting scheduled for March 19th, and we have invited all the cities to come in there, and I believe the formal conversations will be initiated. But that's certainly, we have that built into our plan too.
Okay.
Is to
Are we
take into
proposing to share
consideration.
cost with them?
Are we proposing to share cost with them?
With the cities, yeah.
Surveillance activities, we will be completely responsible for the surveillance activity. We will provide them with the traps, we'll process the specimens, we'll provide the testing for the specimens. But as far as the response goes, it's going to be a coordinated effort. And sharing cost, I think that's where the interlocal agreements will come into play. So,
Right.
Director Brewer wants to add
But
something.
have we had any, we've not had any discussions to date with the cities, have we?
I think that the Public Health Department has been talking with the cities about how we're going to formulate this plan. I don't know if we've actually had any discussions as far as cost sharing. We'll definitely have those discussions, though.
personally for me in my precinct, I think it's important that public health work with my office to inform us exactly what Tarrant County's plan is and allow us a chance to work directly with the elected official of those cities to work out the cost sharing or whatever dynamics we need to work out prior to a crisis on our hands. So I think that we are willing to work with you on that, okay? So we won't be blindsided down the road.
Thank you.
Well, one of the go ahead.
Excuse me, Dr. Curian, depending on how you count or what you agree is the number of municipalities in Tarrant County, there are 6 or 7 that have not so far agreed to collaborate with us. Would you let us know offline what those 6 or 7 cities, which cities they are, so that we can reach out and make contact with them and try to bring them into the program?
Yeah. It is not that they're not willing to be part of our surveillance program. They're certainly willing to share their data with us. They are in their process of finalizing their plans about contracting it out with private vendors. But we will certainly be getting the data from them. So.
Okay.
And I guess one of the things that I would add is that as we start, especially if we're talking about sharing costs, that we do that from a county-wide basis. And while I agree that, you may be a whole lot more successful at bringing the elected officials in, what I would be cautious of is not having a separate reimbursement agreement.
Uniform cost.
Yeah, it needs to be uniform, and we don't need to be working one deal with one city and a different deal with another one, and then ending up having different.
I agree with you.
Different things along that line.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Fred.
Judge, we need a vote.
Yeah, we need a vote on that, but was there any other questions at this point in time?
No, sir.
So please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Now the influenza update.
Okay, thank you. Flu, we're currently still at the widespread activity level, although many of our disease markers like flu-related doctor's visits and the proportion of specimens testing positive for flu continues to decline. The only marker that seemed to be not showing the consistent decline that the other markers are doing is the flu-related hospitalizations. And this is nationwide. This seems to be increasing, waxing and waning from week to week. And it's mainly because of the seriousness of the illness among the 65 years and older segment of population. It's this population that's driving the flu-related hospitalization indicator up. As far as the predominant strain goes, H3N2 is still the predominant circulating flu strain in our community. Nationwide, we have 78 flu-associated pediatric deaths, 13 in the state of Texas. We continue to have 1 death. Even though the flu activity is declining, it is still prevalent in our community, so the recommendations for flu vaccines still stands, and the vaccines are available in all our public health centers. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Members of the court, if we could go to item E. This is a legislative update. Mr. Mendez has provided you with a memorandum on this past week's activity. I'll be more than happy to try to answer any questions that the court may have at this time. Hearing none, if we could then move to item F. This concerns the 2006 capital improvement program and the transportation program. Mr. Phillips is here to address the court.
Well, if we could get these briefing items spread out between weeks, it sure would be helpful to us. 4 or 5 in 1 week is too many.
I understand, Commissioner. We didn't have court last week, and we don't have court next week. We're trying to get them in.
Go ahead, Mr. Phillips.
I'd like to update the Commissioner's Court, a brief update on the Commissioner's Court on the progress of 2 facilities management construction projects. First, the 1895 Courthouse Site Improvement Project. Over the last couple of weeks, the Dalco Construction Company has been working with the City of Fort Worth to secure and obtain a traffic plan and rental of the streets, sidewalks, and parking meters, and that should be worked out this week. Once they do that, they'll install the barricades around the construction perimeter, and once they do that, They'll put plywood over the wall, over the windows on the west side of the courthouse, and then they will commence to remove the angels and remove the bump out on the east side of the old civil courts building that kind of bumps out a few feet. Once that's complete, they will install a 60-foot tall by 120-foot long scaffolding wall in between the old civil courts building and the 1895 courthouse, and they'll fasten a fabric screen onto that wall to protect the old courthouse from demolition debris. All that will take about 2 months, and after that's done, the wall's up, the big equipment shows up. Moving on to the civil courts building.
And then from there, you're suggesting about when do you think that building is going to be gone?
Okay. Judge, the building will be down sometime in June, all the way down to the ground. Then they've got to go out and do some excavation to create the cistern system that we bought.
Once the building is down, will that mean that the screen will come down at that point in time, too?
I believe it will. Yes, sir.
Okay. So it'll be done hopefully by the time we have our visitors from NACO here.
Moving on to the civil courts building project, I'm requesting the Commissioners Court approve a design change in the canopies at the top of the building on the north, east, and south sides of the building. This design change request does not include the canopy over the west elevation, which is the front of the building. Drawing number 1 is the current design. Let me discuss the current design of the canopy just a minute before I get into our opportunity. Attached on the last of this little set is a little 8.5 by 11. This is a section detail out of the construction documents. This is the canopy sticking out toward the left there. I've always referred to this canopy as a granite canopy. That's actually not. It's an assembly. It is framed with structural steel that sticks out 4 feet long. It's welded to the building. It's 8 inches high and 1/4 inch thick. It's got all kinds of framing that supports this canopy. There's a roof, essentially a roofing system on top of this canopy with a metal deck, also a waterproofing membrane, and a standing seam metal roof. On the bottom side and on the end, it's cladded with granite slab, about 2 inches thick. The issue is this is 4 feet wide, and it looks like we're going to have to put 28 to 30 holes, about 8-inch diameter each, into this canopy so we can get the cables down for the swing stage for the staff and maintenance folks to get down and clean the windows on the building 2 or 3 times a year, and also to perform maintenance on the exterior skin. They don't have these holes designed yet, but I do know this. They're not going to be looking too good. They're going to have to sleeve these holes with metal pipe. And this metal pipe is going to have to be welded into this structural framing system that holds this canopy up for stability. This metal pipe is going to have to stick up probably 10 to 12 inches above the canopy top so they can flash up and put the waterproofing membrane, attach it to each pipe for proper waterproofing techniques. Because if we don't, the water's going to go, rainwater is going to go back inside the building eventually. So we have to, it's just like a flashing on a roof. It's the same condition. So it creates 28 to 30 more places of water can get in our building. I'm concerned about the way those holes will look from down below and top, because it's going to look a little odd to have 10 or so pipes sticking up along a canopy on the side of the building. I suggest that we go with option 2 or 3, which is drawing 2 and 3. Drawing 2 has the canopy reduced to 18 inches and requires no holes. It's still an assembly canopy where it has structural steel and all those kind of things I talked about as far as the roofing system. Drawing 3 is no canopy. It's a granite fascia that requires no superstructure addition And there's one unique thing about drawing 3, it's a deductive change order, which will reduce the cost of this project by $140,000.
What's the purpose of the canopy?
Decoration.
Like the color of your tie?
Yes. We talked about shading and things. It makes no significant impact on the shading of the building. Of course, it shades maybe the first row of windows, but for overall impact of the BTUs and the heat load and things, it does not make any impact whatsoever.
I like saving the $140,000.
David, is this just on the south side of the building?
GK, it is. Yes, it is on the south side, the north side, and the back east side, which has the same condition, the same 4 foot.
So what will you do on the west side?
It does no change. It's no change, Judge. That is on the west side. It sticks out 8 foot. That is a metal panel canopy over there on the west side. We do not plan to change that whatsoever. The window washing folks and the building maintenance folks will be able to get out on that ledge on the top because it's 5 foot deep. There's going to be a window that they can go out, an operable window. They'll be able to go out, tie onto the davits with the ropes, and come down with their Bolson chairs like you see them on this building when they're cleaning the windows. That won't be happening. If we leave this 4 foot canopy, they're going to have to use swing stages. Our costs go up, and we won't be able to use the Bolson chairs anymore.
So will there be some sort of a hook system underneath the canopy on the west side?
Yes.
So that they can get the first set of windows and then they'll tie on either to some hooks in the deck or something like that on the...
Judge, those hooks will be on the top on that walkway up there. They're davits, called davits, and they'll hook down, and we have to get those inspected once a year and things of that nature. But they'll be able to hook on those davits just like they do on the top of this building.
And then they'll just use ladders to clean the windows, or just poles, I guess, poles and stuff like that for the windows on that very top level.
Oh, I think so, and then they will probably be able to reach most of them with their hands.
And they can't, we could not, on the other side, on the south, north, and east side, they couldn't get out on, there's no ledges there for them to get out on.
That's correct, Judge. Also, one of the things I haven't discussed yet, but it's a constructability issue. This was brought up, and the reason it's getting brought up now, because when we were going through the bid evaluation process last summer, we had several bidders, structural steel, masonry bidders, and tube steel, which is the wall system, the metal studs and such, talk about the constructability of the canopy. The masonry guy said, I'm going to have to move back my scaffolding again just to get on top of this canopy because he won't be able to get the top section of the stone work done. So it's an additional step.
The canopy's not enough, it's not strong enough to hold somebody getting on top of it.
You've got to build it. You've got to go build it, and it's not buildable. They've got to apply all the stone. They've got to apply all the deck and the roofing membrane and the standing seam roof, and you're not going to want to stand on that when they have to finish out the detail of it. They're going to have scaffolding. So it's got to be moved back from where it would normally be. And that's what brought some of this up. And it's become an issue. And we focused on the grill on the front of the building back a couple of years ago, and I was focused on that grill, which has gone away, and I probably didn't focus enough on these canopies.
So we have a construction manager. All of them are recommending that we do away with the canopy.
They're the strongest proponent. Okay. So we're recommending we either go with option 2 or 3. Option 3 provides a deductive change of $140,000. The architect is good with either 2 or 3.
Reluctantly, I'll make a motion we go with 3.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all we have at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, could you give me a minute, please?
Sure.
This court was kind enough last month to allow me to reorganize my administrative staff to eliminate the precinct administrator position and the community outreach coordinator position and to create 2 executive administrative positions, one in charge of administration and constituent services, the other in charge of programs and outreach. I would like to introduce, and it gives me a great deal of pleasure to do so this morning, to introduce my executive administrator in charge of administration and constituent services, Ms. Kathy Young. And my brand new executive administrator in charge of programs and outreach, Ms. Shannon Fletcher. This court will be seeing a lot of both of these highly qualified professional women.
Congratulations. We will now recess our open meeting and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. Having returned from our closed session and there being no business at this time, we are adjourned.
When do we handle, or do we do anything on that those personnel actions?